everybody. Welcome to another edition of ECH Postgame Live after a 4-2 loss to the Edmonton Oilers. And this game felt kind of familiar, right? If we've watched these Kraken games since the Christmas break, feels like a trend is developing with this Kraken team, right? They start slow, they dig themselves into a hole, they have often a multi-goal deficit in the third period, and they put on a furious push to try and come back. And they did all of that again tonight. In this one, they weren't really able to come all the way back to tie it as the Oilers hit the empty net to make it 4-2. But I do think this is another game where we're starting to develop a pattern of the way that the Kraken are playing. And I think that's something that we can really dive into tonight and talk about because I think there's a lot of interesting takeaways from what the Kraken are doing right now. But first, of course, want to thank our sponsor for ECH Postgame Live, Queen Anne Beer Hall. And for that, I want to share from the Discord, actually, from Strider, who took some great photos at the beer hall and told me the chopped cheese is legit. Definitely get a double, though. So nice little tip for anybody there. Make sure to get a double, get really filled up with that chopped cheese, but it is delicious. And thank you, Strider, for posting that on the Discord. Always love when you guys show up to Queen Anne Beer Hall, show them the love. Really appreciate that and appreciate them sponsoring these post-game lives. So let's dive into chat here. And I'm kind of seeing the reaction from everybody to start. You know, B talk Groovy played so well, deserved a better result. Cole, I've seen worse. Gru was amazing. So yeah. Terrible Lotus with the Gru. So I think that's the first thing we can talk about. Philip Grubauer was very good in this game. He allowed 3 goals in this one, but man, it could have been a lot more if not for Philip Grubauer. He saved the Kraken's bacon on several occasions. And you know what? He gave them a chance to win a game that they had no business being in, that they had no business winning. And so I think he deserves a lot of credit in this one for how well he played. I mean, especially the McDavid breakaway stop. That was huge. The 2-on-1 save right before the Kraken scored to make it 3-2. That kept them in the game. If that goes in, you know, that game's over. So great game for Philip Grubauer. And it's really nice to see him kind of find his groove after some real struggles early on this season. And I think maybe all he needed was just being able to kind of get into all these games and establish a rhythm. But he's looking as good as he's looked all season and maybe even dating back to last season at times. So good on Philip Grubauer. And I'm glad we kind of start with something positive there. And Zoe, after the first 2, Gru played well. Yeah, Jenna's Gru stopping McDavid one-on-one was awesome. Yeah, I mean, I love seeing all the support here for Philip Grubauer. And yeah, what Andrew, his groove. Yeah. No, I think anyone else have a robot RJ? Yeah, let me know if my voice is distorted or if there's an issue with it here. I can kind of check the mic and see what's going on. I think that should be the correct mic and everything. But let me know. I'll check back down later in chat. But until then, I will go back to chat from Lindsay. Well, that was certainly a Kraken hockey game. That's Fusion Mix. Sadly, that's Kraken hockey, baby. I mean, it certainly has been of late, and I think now I can kind of get into it. And audio fine, Astratic. Okay. All right. Good to hear that. But I think we can get into this pattern that we're seeing with the Kraken, which I really think is becoming a problem for them, which is that they're putting themselves in these deficits, right? And the furious push to come back that's nice. It's admirable. It's entertaining, but there's a problem with putting yourself in these positions to start with, right? You can't get away with it every game, as this game has showed, as the Canucks game to an extent showed. I mean, they even got away with it to get a point, which they probably shouldn't have been able to do. But I think it has to be addressed, these bad starts from the Kraken. And this one was especially bad. I thought the Kraken had an awful start to this game. And what struck me the most was this morning, we got Vince Dunn, we got Dan Bilesma, and what they both talked about, far and away, number one priority for them was managing the puck. It was controlling the puck so that you didn't feed the Oilers transition, so you didn't give them chances. And as Dan said, the best way to play defense, the thing about playing defense, the best way to do that is to just not have to play it. And of course, that means taking care of the puck when you have it, establishing in the offensive zone for long stretches of time so that McDavid and Draisaitl, first of all, aren't able to get the puck. And then when they are, they don't have They don't have here. All right, Byron getting some audio issues. Let's see if this makes it better. If it goes a little bit closer to me. Everyone let me know if this is better now. But I think, where was I? Something. Oh yeah, protecting the puck, right? That was their number one priority for the team going into this game because they know how skilled the Oilers players are and you can't be giving them opportunities. And I think in that respect, if you're just looking at how well the Kraken protected the puck, managed the puck, this might be their worst game of the season. And so that was especially concerning to me that you go into this game and that is your number one priority. It's the thing that everybody is focused on and is cluing in on. This is the thing we have to do tonight. And you go out there and you do an atrocious job of it for the first 20 minutes, really the first 40 minutes. The amount of turnovers that the Kraken made, I lost count. I mean, it's just wild how many turnovers they had. And it's just not something you can get away with against this Oilers team. And as Dave's saying, it's frustrating, right? When they've identified the right way to shut down the Oilers and the right things that you need to do. They talked about them this very morning, and you come out and you have maybe your worst performance of the season in that exact respect. And I just don't know what to say about it at this point. They're identifying the right things. They know what they need to do. They just can't go out and do it consistently. And, in a way, look, it's always more fun to cover a win than a loss, I'm telling you. But in a way, I'm kind of glad the Kraken weren't able to get away with that kind of start, because that's just not a good message to send this team, because you're not going to be able to get away with that consistently. And so I'm hoping they take those lessons away and start better. It got better once the game went on, once they already spotted the other team 3 goals, but you just can't do that every single game and expect to get away with it. Certainly not with the hole in the standings they dug themselves into. So that's my little rant on this. Thank you for letting me get that out of the way, everybody, because I feel like that needs to be talked about. Super chat from James, so some negativity there on Philip Grubauer. I think I thought he had a fine game in this one. I don't think he was the problem. And Andrew, it's starting to feel like it's just this roster is not good. I mean, there's an element of that, right? I don't think there's enough skill on this roster to really be a playoff team. But what's so frustrating about it is that you look at the end of this game, the push they were able to put on, not just this game, but the last game against Vancouver, the game before against Utah, the game before that against Vancouver. They're able to do it for stretches of a game. At the very end, basically once they're out of it, or it feels like they're all but out of it, they're able to unlock that somehow. They can do it. They just can't bottle that and put it earlier in the game. And that's what's frustrating about all of this, is it feels like they are able to do it, just not at the right times, or not until it's almost too late. Maddie, they keep playing these games where I can't turn it off. I have to see if they get a mid-game power-up. It really does feel like they just get a mid-game power-up, and at a certain point, they just find this power, this energy that they didn't have. And it's hard to explain. Hopefully Dylan will have a little more to say on that and kind of help me talk through this and explain it. And hopefully I'm curious what Coach Dan and the players had to say, because you can't deny it after this game. It's a trend. It is absolutely a trend. So I want to hear what everybody else has to say about it, because I can't really find explanations right now. Super chat here from Schultz. Once again, at their best, they are more than competitive. Bad starts in games they could have won. Unfortunately, we're getting close to Yanni's last game. The Kraken did, I think, miss Yanni Gourde in this one, especially against the Oilers, having somebody who can be, that shutdown center at times. And that's one thing Yanni's really good at doing. And his line is just taking the puck, getting it deep into the other zone, and just grinding it away, and just taking that time away where the other team isn't really able to attack. And I think the Kraken missed Gourde a lot in this one. Ben Myers had a really rough start to this game. I mean, including the turnover at center that led to the second Oilers goal. It was tough kind of getting thrown into that spot. And I thought he could have played better, but you can't ever have expectations all that high for a fourth line center. But you're right. I think we are, they missed Yanni Gourde. I mean, look, if this continues and they're at the trade deadline this far back, they're going to have to move him. But Yanni's doing what he can. It hurts to not have him in this game. And then Sean, we need to start seeing what the team without Yanni looks like. It's coming soon enough. I mean, it probably is, But it's disappointing because, Yanni has played pretty well this season, I think. Let's see. As we go back into chat. Got another super chat here. This one from Kraken fan. What's happened to the fast-paced game we saw hints of early in the season that started to work out for them, and they just seem to forget about it? I think one of the things that happened is that teams watched tape on the Kraken's transition game, and they played in a way that you could neutralize it and shut it down. I think teams got a little bit more conservative about pinching up with their defensemen, about getting aggressive and risky. And I think the Kraken early in the season were able to take advantage of some teams that were playing riskier than they could, right? And beat them in transition. And I think as soon as other teams saw that that was what the Kraken were trying to do, naturally, other coaches made adjustments. And I think the Kraken have kind of struggled. We talked about this, maybe even a month ago, right? They've struggled to find a plan B to counter that. And I think also they just don't have a ton of, enough talent to kind of break through that when their main thing is taken away. And yeah, I'll read this one from Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Hey, everyone, British fan here. I've been watching hockey for over a month now and picked the Kraken as my team. Nice to meet you all. Hey there, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad you picked the Kraken as your team. That is awesome. Love our fans from across the pond. I know we've got many of them in the ECH community, but thank you for joining us on this post-game live. Always love to see hockey thriving and hockey fans all over the world. That is really cool. And love the hellos and the welcomes from everybody in chat for Cinnamon Toast Crunch there. Really appreciate that. So going back into chat here, let's see. Cole, Brandon Montour with 13 plus minutes in the third period is wild. Yeah, I haven't checked the final ice time stats yet, but that doesn't surprise me. That is crazy. Although, yeah, Montour, the minute muncher per Allison Lucan. Yeah, that's correct. And of course, I think we should talk about the reason why he had to play so much, and that is that the Kraken did lose Adam Larsson in this one. Larsson's last shift came with about 3 minutes to go in the second period. He wasn't out there for the third. Undisclosed injury. He missed the third period, the rest of the game. We'll see if there's any update on him from Coach Dan. I would imagine not. The way things usually go, there usually isn't. But that is unfortunate to see. Adam Larsson, of course, a big part of the Kraken's top four, and the blue line had to be shuffled around quite a bit with him out of the lineup. And so you have guys like Montour getting 13 minutes in the third. Vince Dunn was out there a whole lot. Jamie Alexiak was out there a whole lot. And so everyone kind of had to step up. And I think they did a good job of stepping up in those situations. But 29-40 for Monty, as Sean said, via end, Sean, that's crazy. Almost 30 minutes. Upper body injury for Larsson. Okay, says Milo. That's good. So we got another update there. That 29-40. I got to go back and look and see, when the last time he played. That might be an all-time franchise record. I would imagine. I can't remember another time where a Kraken player played that much. Maybe in one of the playoff overtime games or something, but in a regular season game, I don't think so. So that might be a record there. We'll see if Montour is one of the players that we end up talking to. I can kind of go check and see who they're going to have for Dylan to talk to. If Montour is one of them, let me take a look. So it looks like, yeah, maybe Stevenson or Schwartz. Yeah, Stevenson, of course, with the goal there. So that'll be interesting to ask Montour about. That is crazy. That's a lot of ice time for Brandon Montour. But, he stepped up. He looked good. And he had that shot, too, on that one power play where it was the only good chance of the power play, but he kind of sifted it through some traffic and ended up hitting the post. He's so good at that. Yeah, Chris, why can't we just play the bottom half of the division from now on? It really helps the vibes. Yeah, sure does. Having teams that can't really make you pay for bad starts. Lindsay, at least we didn't force OT and lose. No more loser points, time to tank. And I know people are kind of split on that at this point, right? With the playoffs looking unlikely, do you want the points? Do you not? I will agree, though, no loser points, because then you go home feeling bad because the team lost and you get a point in the standings. Win or lose in regulation. I'm with you on that. And then Fusion Mix, this team looks so weird along the boards. They'll win a puck battle, and then it looks like they don't know who to pass it to, so it goes nowhere. And in this game especially, I think the Oilers are really good at board play. They have their wingers just glued to the boards, whether it's offensively or defensively, and they are trying to establish a presence on the boards and win those battles. Like, they emphasize it. And I know Dylan wanted the Kraken to adjust and kind of work more toward the middle and they did a little bit, but not really a ton. Maybe by the end of the game they worked a little bit more, but the Oilers are just really good along the boards, and the Kraken weren't all that great either, though. Fusion Mix Cal Pickard did not look good. Yeah, I thought he looked a little shaky. He didn't look great in this one. He made the saves when he needed to, though. Lindsay, Dan should just tell the boys before the game that they already are down 2 goals before the puck even drops, so maybe they can start better. I wonder if that's like if they just need some kind of punch in the face, but how do you do that for this group, right? How do you get them to think that they're already down? I don't know. Dave, it was the lights going out fault for the first goal. That was weird. I have never seen that before, where the lights just go out mid-play. Of course, I know we had the game against the Rangers last season, right, where the lights went out on the right side, and so it was kind of dark throughout the whole game. I remember that, but I've never seen all the lights go out mid-play like that. That was kind of wild to be a part of in the building for. Yeah, I couldn't believe that. So that was kind of cool, but I felt like, okay, this is an omen. Is it a good or bad omen? And I think shortly after that question was answered. So I do wonder what the story behind that was. I wonder if somebody just pressed the wrong button or something. Yeah, the lights curse from Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And then Milo asking, how worried were you when Groube made that sprawling spread save, but followed along? But was slow to get up with Joey out still. I was very worried. I turned to Dylan and I was like, oh, he stretched his groin. This is not good. And he stayed down a little bit too. And yeah, Milo scared me so bad. I didn't know what was going on. Yeah, with the lights. I mean, the Grubauer thing did scare me, especially with Joey being out. Like, on the one hand, though, I did think, well, the one silver lining is it might have been nice just to get Alex Stezka some NHL action. He's never played in the NHL before. He's backed up before, but he doesn't have a second of game action. I thought that would have been cool for him, just personally. And if Joey is out longer term, like, Grubauer's playing well enough. You don't really want to give Stezka a start, but just I don't know. He's an easy guy to root for, so I wouldn't hate to see him get in the net, but I wouldn't like the reason why. But it did scare me a little bit there, to answer your question. Lindsay, Eddie was tearing Burakovsky a new one for all the turnovers. Surprised Berkey didn't get benched. Yeah, there were some from Berkey there. Andrew saying, yeah, I felt like Berkey was giving the puck over everywhere. It wasn't just him. I guess that's the thing I can say in his defense, and that it was a bunch of other people as well. But yeah, he was, as Simon is saying, Berkey was especially awful. Not one of his better games, that's for sure. And I do wonder if maybe you give Sprong another look after this game, kind of in that spot, if you don't make changes on the lines that are too big. I see Dylan setting up here, so he should join us pretty soon. That tells me it's maybe another quick set of interviews for everybody. Let's see. Let's look back in chat here. Blue White Flame, can they catch the Blackhawks, Sharks, Sabres, or Red Wings? I'd say in that order, no, yes. Realistically, if they do kind of trend further down in that direction, I think Sabres and Red Wings absolutely could be caught. Blackhawks and Sharks, that would be really tough. And then Striatic says the worst part was the Oilers did give up some goals, but honestly kind of cruised to the win. We're on the second half of a back-to-back, but weren't able to avoid working hard late. That's true. I mean, I feel like I felt the Oilers on the second half of the back-to-back. You could feel it toward the end of the game where it felt like they were kind of just trying to park the bus and just sit on that lead. And they did. And maybe that's the reason the Kraken can kind of get back into it. But again, when you're facing a team on the second half of back-to-back, I feel like you should start a little bit better too. You can make that push earlier in the game. And then Maddie asking, any idea what happened to Lars? So we covered the injury. I didn't see what happened to him. There was nothing obvious on that last shift. I got to go back and look at it. I'm going to go try and find it on video, but I didn't have time to during the game. But I'll get back to everybody, maybe on the Discord or something if I find something. And I know some people talking, with James talking about, the tanking Blue White Flame. I don't want to write the season off only halfway through. Yeah, I think the halfway mark is actually after the next game against New Jersey. That's the actual halfway mark of the season. So there is still a lot of season to go. You never want to write it off that early, but the odds are long, but it's not impossible. So again, don't want to get there yet, right? I think the playoff odds are still higher than the first overall pick odds at this point. As long as that's the case, we can kind of talk with that perspective. Let's see, Amanda. With the amount of breakaways tonight, Gourde was the better tendy for that job, even if Joey had been well enough to play. I mean, especially with a guy like Connor McDavid bearing down on you, I feel like he might have been able to deke Joey out of his skates sometimes. But Gourde fared pretty well on those. All right, so we've got Dylan joining us shortly here as he's getting set up, just waiting for him to give me the go ahead. And so I'm going to kind of skip down to the bottom of chat. If you put anything in there that I had skipped over, just let me know and I will come around and get to it. And for now, let's get Dylan on here. How's it going? Another quick one, huh?
Yeah, really quick. I mean, I actually spent a couple minutes trying to get my computer to connect to the Wi-Fi here. It was so quick. I mean, look, you know the situation, right? It's another loss in the books. And the big story for this one for the players and especially for Dan, it's the fact that they had to come back in a game yet again, right? And this time they're not able to complete the comeback. They're able to pull within, one before the empty netter for Edmonton. But it's just another instance of this team basically digging themselves a hole, especially in the earlier parts of the game, and then having that good push, finding their game, playing their game eventually, but it coming way too late for them, right? And the moral of the story, Jaden Schwartz said it when we talked with him. Dan Bylsma said it. This is just not a league that you can consistently expect to find yourself in these holes where you have to make a comeback and expect to actually complete that comeback. Like, that's just not how this league works. You have to, at some point, find a way to start a game on time, match the opponent's energy and pace, as that was talked about as one of the things that was not done early on in this one. And I think we can probably all agree with that assessment of things. But it's one where you have to be able to find a way to do that. It's great to know that you can put on these pushes. It's great to know that you have the ability to come back and tie games and send them to overtime and potentially win them in overtime. But it's not a reliable, pathway to success in the National Hockey League. And the team is aware of that. They're just still trying to find whatever answer they can find for that early game consistency.
Right, and I'm guessing nobody really ventured to say what that answer is. Besides, we just got to go out and do it, right?
Basically, yeah. I mean, they all have different things that they'll talk about as far as what went wrong early on. Dan Bylsma talks about that the pace, right? The pace just wasn't really there. Looked like they were kind of standing around while Edmonton was really going for it. Edmonton's able to get behind them a couple times. They're able to get a couple breakaways. They're able just to get behind in the defensive zone for the Kraken. The Kraken did not have the same pace. Jaden Schwartz talked a little bit about the turnovers, right? And the fact that, they're still just making mistakes with the puck in their own end and kind of feeding what that other team wants to do. I'm sure you've talked plenty about that the first 20 minutes of this. So there's a couple different, avenues that you can point to and say, like, that's where their early game troubles lie. But, the bottom line is you got to pick one and find a way to fix it, because until they can, we're just going to continue to see a lot of this stuff, which will lead to exciting comebacks, but it's also going to lead to a lot of nights where you are going to walk away with 0 points in the standings.
Right. And one thing I did talk about too was, I mean, you mentioned it, right? Taking care of the puck and how that was just such a big emphasis before the game. Did Dan or any of the players kind of follow up specifically on that being the focus this morning and then just not bringing it forward into the game?
Not really. Like I said, Jaden Schwartz kind of was the only one to touch on it directly, taking care of the puck. But it was in with, like, starting the game on time. They just came out. They were faster than us. We just weren't as quick as them. We fed their transition, didn't protect the puck enough, and then just kind of continued. So it was one where I mean, look, it was their point of emphasis this morning. They know that it's a problem. I guess, there's no point in beating a dead horse about it tonight after this one, but it is one where, look, first step is knowing that is a problem for you and working to address it. We're at the point where, though, that they have to find a way to actually execute on that. They have to find a way where they can go out there and make plays and not just feed what other teams want to be doing, especially a team like this one. You can't have first periods where you have Connor McDavid on a breakaway after the game's already 1-0.
Right, exactly. Now, I want to talk about the defense situation a little bit too. The Kraken lose Adam Larsson, as Milo says. To paraphrase you, Do Adam Larsson no defenseman. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I'm guessing there was no update on Adam Larsson from Dan.
All we got was that it's an upper body injury, so we at least have that bit of news. And Dana did have an interesting turn of phrase for it. He said we'll have to wait and see how it responds.
Oh, okay.
So I don't
I don't
entirely
like
know what
that.
that means. I don't like it either. That doesn't sound particularly good. But that is the language that we got from Coach Dan Bilesma.
Okay, maybe might have to wait for some swelling or something to go
Yeah.
down if I'm going to venture a guess. And as a result, as people pointed out earlier, Brandon Montour, 29:40 of ice time in this one, including over 13 minutes in the third period for Brandon Montour. I mean, was there any talk about the blue line and kind of after the injury and how they adjusted to all that stuff? And I'm curious your thoughts on that as well.
There wasn't. Like I said, this was pretty quick. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody just was keeping stuff short and trying to get out of there, right? And I think though, it's great that they have Brandon Montour and that they have somebody that they can lean on who can play those big minutes when you need him to. It's we'll see how sustainable it is and how long it's going to need to be sustainable for them based on how long Lars is out. But it is one of those where you know, it is not ideal. And he already had to cover a lot of ground and make up for the fact that you were without Vince Dunn for a large portion of the early part of this season. If he's going to have to, again, step up, play big minutes, take over, for Adam Larsson now, I do wonder if at some point down the stretch you start seeing fatigue from Brandon Montour from him playing all those minutes. That being said, look, he plays great when they send him out there. He does not look tired when he does have to play 13 minutes in a period. He still plays at an elite level. He gives them a chance to win. He arguably gives them the best chance to win when he is out there on the ice in those situations. His defense even picks up for those moments or the situations where they have the net empty. I feel like he's a very good defender. So, it's great that they have him for those scenarios. It's just, it kind of sucks that we're going to need him to step up and really be a workhorse after he's already had to do that this year.
Right. I mean, that's a lot, and a body can only manage so much. I guess, maybe we'll find out how much. And then Terrible Lotus with kind of a question on the injuries, right? Upper body is anywhere from the waist, including the head. Yet that's usually how it's done when talking about injuries. It also can include arms, hands, everything there. That's upper body, even though I guess if you hold it to your side, it can be below the waist. But yeah, that would be the upper body injury.
Yeah.
And some talk about too, if Larsson is out longer term, who the call up might be. Viren saying Fleury's finally back from injury, so maybe him. It's got to be either him or Olofsson, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I would think that the preference would be Fleury if he's healthy. Maybe they want to give him a little bit of time, work really back in with the Firebirds, stuff like that. But I have to imagine, especially the fact that you're losing somebody on the top pairing, probably see Cale Fleury as the call up.
I would think so too. And then we have a super chat here from Schultz, and it kind of goes with some larger discussion that I see happening in chat, talking about maybe players going. I know Yanni's name was mentioned earlier, right? But any non-UFA sell-off you could see happening, Bjorky. I mean, I think it's a little early to be thinking about that, in this kind of scenario. But I mean, he might be the most likely one, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he has more value, I would assume, to other teams than, say, Andre Burakovsky.
In that he has positive value, yes.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to be nice, but yes, that is what I'm saying. So like, yeah, I guess you could look at something like that. I think kind of like we've talked about all season. If we get to February and you're still talking about 1-2% playoff odds, if you still even have that, there's just no way that Ron Francis has got to be able to keep Yanni Gourde and Brandon Tanev, right? Like it would be irresponsible to keep them through the trade deadline in early March. And I think we know that he is somebody who will approach the trade deadline, both buying and selling a little bit aggressively and try to get his business done early. So I think if the rest of this month, the Kraken struggle, I think at any point with the start of February, we can start expecting maybe a move on one of those two pending UFAs. As for other guys on the roster, that's going to be a larger organizational decision. And because you're really talking about blowing up the core at that point, you're really talking about potentially having to do A reboot. I wouldn't say it's a rebuild, but it would be some sort of quick retooling or reboot on things. And to be honest, we've never seen this organization, this franchise, act rashly about that kind of stuff. I can't imagine them wanting to make that decision mid-season. That seems to me like something that ownership and management would make come the off season. So I don't know that I would expect to see any other kind of movement there just on the pending UFAs.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. It's something you wouldn't see at the deadline. And then from Terrible Lotus, are all these Flurries related? I've been wondering. So Kale Fleury, who we were just talking about with the Firebirds, is related to Hayden Fleury, former Kraken, now with he's still with Tampa?
No, he's with Winnipeg?
I'm going to
Question
look
mark?
this up real quick. Yeah, no, here.
Hayden
I'm
Fleury?
sure Viren
Winnipeg?
will beat me to it. Yes, with Winnipeg. You're correct on
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So
Winnipeg.
they are brothers. Those two are related. And then there is also Marc-Andre Fleury, goalie for the Minnesota Wild, and I don't believe that he is related
No,
to
yeah,
either
no.
neither Hayden nor Kale. But good question there. I'm sure as for hockey fans wondering, right? There's always a lot of relationships and everything here, especially with like Boston and Montreal are playing in the PWHL game tomorrow, and I was like looking at the sheet and everything for the Boston coach, and there's a Kessel last name, and not related to Phil Kessel, but married to someone who is related to Phil Kessel. So there's always a bunch of different connections there in the hockey world. And then what was the other question here? Oh yeah, Milo asking, what are the odds Joey has to do a conditioning stint when he's all better? I don't know specifics for those, but one last hurrah in the Valley would be cool. As cool as that would be, I think it's probably pretty unlikely. He'll just ramp up practice wise here. He wouldn't do something like that. And as far as the Joey injury, I mean, we did get a bit more of an update this morning. Like he did kind of make some progress. He was out there taking shots from his teammates and working there in the morning skate. And Dan kind of had an interesting turn of phrase about that too. He said, well, now we can, when asked about Joey's progress, he said, well, now we can call it progress. He is making progress because he hit a bit of a stalemate earlier on. And so that doesn't sound good from where it was previously, but it sounds like he has finally made a jump there in his progress.
Yeah, that's great news to hear. And, anytime a player is out, the word you do want to be hearing is progress. Even if it can be a vague term as it is here, it still at least implies positive momentum. And that's, the best we can hope for whenever anybody's injured.
Yeah, and Viren adding, I think you can only do conditioning stints for LTIR returnees and repeated healthy scratches. The healthy scratch one we learned about with the Shane Wright situation. And as I peek over too, I see some Oilers fans in Calvin Pickard jerseys. So I imagine Pickard has a contingent of fans here as well, which of course would make sense.
Yeah,
so that's cool to see.
Yeah. There was a couple guys down there talking with people, but yes, I definitely think that's one of them.
Yeah, so that's cool to see from the former Seattle Thunderbird. Getting a win in this building, if some opposing goaltender has to do it, a former T-Bird is kind of cool. So going back into chat here, let's see. Scroll up a little bit here. I see lots of talk on Yanni and even JT Miller from Vancouver. Kitty B Kraken, Alpha Badillon, I think with the green that was on you. So that's kind of cool. Edward, the lights on Dylan look like the scary tunnel from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Some good chats here.
I don't ever get the victory board, but I sure get this endless power play graphic, which is interesting. This happened last game. Not sure what it's for.
Yeah, it's for the power play, Dylan. Actually, yes. I'm looking at it on the Twins here, and it looks like a Boston Fleet power play. They have the graphic PWHL game on there right now, which, by the way, is tomorrow. You and I will both be going. I hope lots of people in chat are going to go to that because that should be really fun. Can we show it?
Do we spoil the script? I don't know. That's focusing
oh, yeah, that's right. There is a final score up on the board.
4-2 victory for Montreal is what's supposed to happen tomorrow.
It's a 4-2 victoire for Montreal. Good to know. I mean, shots on goal 32-17 in favor of Montreal. So
it seems like a rough one for the Fleet.
Yeah, it might be. But it's going to be a fun game no matter what. Even if the script is spoiled, even if that is the exact final score, I think it's going to be a fun game for everyone to go to. I know we're both going to be there. And let us know in chat if you're going. Maddie says Boston Fleet all the way, and who you're rooting for too. Because there's no obvious rooting interest, right? That you'd think Seattleites should have. I mean,
America
maybe the American team.
versus Canada, and especially because right, like who have been the two players that they've been really pushing to promote this game, and why these teams are traveling around, and it's Hillary Knight of Team USA, and it's MPP of Team Canada. So I feel like that makes sense.
Yeah, it probably does make sense. I don't know. I'm going to be rooting for Montreal, and as Julia says, "Boo, go Boston." So that might be unpopular, but I think I don't know. I love Marie-Philippe Poulin. I can't wait to watch her
I
play
know.
again. I've seen her play before, but
My
I don't know.
first time, so I'm super excited about that.
Yeah,
'Cause
that is going to be
yeah,
great. No, I've been lucky enough to see a couple of the USA Canada exhibition games. They had one in San Jose and one here. But if you are watching this and you're even on the fence about it, if you don't have plans to go and you're free tomorrow at 1 p.m., would highly recommend it. I saw some tickets for under $30 on Ticketmaster before the game tonight. So if you're even thinking about it, I would highly recommend going. Women's hockey is awesome, super entertaining, and I mean, the competitiveness that you see
yeah.
game in, game out from all of them is just really something to witness, especially up close and in person. So would highly recommend it. As see Amanda doing the roll call, who else is going? And I see we got Chuck and Shannon are going. That's
Let's
awesome.
go.
Yeah, and Koshan KG looking forward to the game tomorrow. Just want to see lots of goals. Yeah, Stratic is going. And tickets are still available. Montreal has Stratic's heart, even though Hillary Knight is awesome. Kimber is going to be there. This is so happy. This really warms my heart to see so many people going out and supporting women's hockey. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and they were, both teams were in the building tonight for the game, and they even gave them some of the t-shirts to toss for the t-shirt toss, and my girlfriend was actually able to catch one. So shout out there. That was a pretty cool moment for her. She was very excited.
That's extra special too. I mean, it's
Yeah,
one thing to catch a t-shirt toss t-shirt, but from one of those players,
yeah,
that is awesome.
yeah.
I like the Kraken did that, involve them in the
Yeah,
t-shirt toss.
yeah, get them going. But yeah, great to see them. I'm super looking forward to tomorrow. I'm also, I'm excited to see those two teams play. I'm excited to see my first PWHL game in person, and to see these players play for the first time. Hillary Knight, MPP, all these great players that I've watched on television for the last decade plus, right? So I'm really excited to see all that, and I'm also not going to lie, RJ, I'm excited to go to a hockey game that I don't have to be working for.
I know, right? We're both going as
Just get to
fans.
enjoy it.
It's actually an unusual experience for us now. It's been a long time since I've gone to a game as a fan, so don't have to worry about tweeting right after a goal that happened and kind of breaking it all down. I can just get up, cheer, and enjoy it. So that's going to be really fun. And also, I do want to point out, Blue White Flame, go Frost, go! So get a little representation from the teams that aren't in the game but still in the PWHL. Let's see. Julia, no idea who actually tossed it, but I've decided it was MPP. That's good. It very well could have been.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, Maddie, do you think if something would have happened, then PWHL players could have been the e-bug? I mean, I think the e-bugs have to be like pre-designated ahead
They
of
do.
time.
Yeah.
And so actually, we know the e-bug for tonight. It was Nightwave lead singer Michael Henriksen.
Yep.
And so he was out there performing, and thankfully didn't have to go into the game. I feel like you never want to see an e-bug. I would never wish that on someone getting thrown into a game with like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
I was gonna say it is one of those where it's like you never wish the injuries that it takes to have happen, and certainly on a night like tonight, like you said, it would be a very difficult one. But I am waiting for the day when the national, NHL headline the following morning is that in Seattle, the lead singer of like the house band that night had to come in and play goaltender for the Seattle Kraken, because I mean that's a pretty good story. I'm not gonna lie. Like regardless of result, that's a great story.
It really is. I feel like, I don't know, it's just only a matter of time, right? It might be 10 years from now. I don't know if he'll still be doing that. But also, we've seen him practice with the team. He practiced with the team yesterday. And so he does kind of rotate in as like the rebug in practice, especially with Joey Decord being out. He's kind of rotated in. He looks good. Like he's pretty good. He's obviously not the level of a Grubauer or a Stezko or the other two out there, of course. There's always going to be a big drop off, right, to an e-bug. But like as e-bugs go, he looked pretty good.
I certainly think so. So I don't think it would go that bad either. If it was to have to happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love the stuff around the PWHL. You know, Coach on KG. Cool to see the Kraken host the PWHL game after hosting the rivalry series a couple years ago, which is a very fun game, and also I believe set like an attendance record for a women's hockey game in the United States. Milo MPP read the starting lineup for the Kraken.
That
I
was
mean,
super
that was
cool.
cool seeing the players read the starting lineups too.
Yeah, and I did like the kind of controversy that the Kraken Twitter account started, right? Because they said something along the lines of her being like the GOAT, and everybody was like, wait a second, there is
Yeah,
Hillary Knight in the building. It led to some
I
good
think it's still
discourse.
the right call,
I
but
I do too. I do too, but it was still fun.
yeah,
They
definitely.
could they could prove it to us tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that they're gonna go out and battle it out again for I mean, gosh, how many games must they have played against each other,
Unreal, like, the amount of games.
right,
So
in their
many.
careers? Just given the nature of the international competition and with the leagues and everything, they probably play against each other much more often than specific NHLers do.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
And Fusion Mix, Aaron Frankel would be the most grotesquely overqualified e-bug on the planet. Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
say so.
yeah. Oh,
Let's see. Yeah, the Zamboni driver. These fans will never live that down.
I know.
Um,
Never.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch for the clueless foreigner. Is there a reason the national anthem is sung at literally every game? It's just done for all like North American pro sports, I believe. That's just something we do over here.
Yeah. No, it is.
Um, and then Ricky Dillon has his Steve Dangle response ready for the e-bug game. Yeah,
I mean,
you'll be
I
ready for it. That'd be a
yeah,
crazy post game, wouldn't it?
it would be. It would be. It would be really, really interesting. I don't know. I think it would be like I said, it would be a fun story. It would be a fun story.
Definitely. Um, let's see. And anything else you want to talk about too, as we kind of have, we're at the 42-minute mark. Any other kind of takes you had on this game? I haven't really given you the chance to kind of just freeform
Yeah, I mean, look,
something up.
we had talked about it during the first period, right? One of the things that Edmonton was doing in the defensive zone is they were keeping their wingers very much to the half boards. They were very much playing them to the outside. And look, whether that's something that Edmonton does every game or it's something that they kind of drew up for this Kraken team, I couldn't tell you, but the bottom line is it had, I would assume, the desired, effect of the Kraken are a team that really likes to cycle back to the point when they're forechecking and they're down low, especially below the goal line in the corners, right? They are a team that likes to send those pucks back up to their blue line. And all that was happening in that first period, right, was they were doing that and they were just throwing it right to the Edmonton Oilers wingers. And these Oilers wingers too, by the way, they're not even like facing the puck. They're basically turned around to the puck so that when the puck comes up the boards, they can already kind of start skating. So by the time they collect it, they already have momentum and they were just able to come up the ice and start attacking in transition. And I said to you, with probably 5 minutes left in the first period, okay, this is what the Oilers want to be doing right now. Obviously, you need to stop feeding it. That's like number one priority is just stop falling for it. But hey, guess what? If they have their wingers that far to the outside that they are pressed up against the glass, you know what that means? It means you have a ton of space to work towards the inside. And I do think that the Kraken started to do that a little bit in the first half of the second period when they came out and they looked a little bit stronger. And then certainly late in this game, they were able to go in there and win a lot of the battles on the interior, even once Edmonton started to collapse their defensive structure and bring those wingers in. The Kraken were just able to win those battles on the inside. And so it's one of those where I kind of wish maybe the Kraken had picked up on that in the first period and made an adjustment, even if it wasn't to necessarily go to the inside as much as they did later once you have a full intermission to really draw up plays and kind of get everybody on the same page, just to acknowledge that, hey, guess what? They've got guys basically lying in wait for what our kind of tendency is. Let's maybe break that up a little bit. I felt like that's something that maybe could have started in the first period. You don't always need to wait for the intermission, but it was one where they were able to recognize it. They were able to change things up, and I think that's partly why we saw a lot of the feeding of the Edmonton transition stop come the second period, was because they were able to recognize that and get everybody on the same page about what they want them to be doing. We saw a lot more of, again, Andre Burakovsky cutting to the inside, Oliver Bjorkstrand doing what he likes to do, cut to the inside. We got to see more of that in the second period. It was just still The passing wasn't really there for a lot of those plays to develop into full-on scoring chances for the Kraken. Basically had, 10 shots on goal through the first 40 minutes of this game or whatever, right? That's a problem. That wasn't even talked about as one of the issues tonight by everybody, right? It was turnovers. It was just, waking up and having the same pace as the other team at the start of the game. Let's not forget, you also only had 10 shots on goal through like 2 periods. Like that is also very much something that kind of needs to be addressed here. I do not envy this coaching staff that it feels very much like they are just constantly trying to plug holes with this group right now. And, every time they address something, they are able to slowly kind of work through it and get it better. The problem is this, as soon as they're able to kind of patch one hole, another one springs up, right? And they have to kind of go and deal with that one. And, that's fairly normal. That is coaching in professional sports. That's just the way it is. There's injuries, guys are fatigued, guys are banged up, systems are changing. You need to adjust because other teams have adjusted to you, right? You always do have to be active as a coach in any sport at the professional level. It's just that a lot of the problems that this coaching staff seems to have to deal with are problems that it doesn't feel like they should have to deal with at the professional level, right? Like, we've talked about a lot of the issues that this group kind of has, and they've had them through, again, a second coaching staff now. These are things that they should maybe just have down, right? They shouldn't need to constantly be tweaking things so that they're not turning the puck over, and feeding the other team's transition so that they can come out with energy and not just get blown by in the first 5 minutes of the game. Those feel like things that, again, they have to come from the players, but it's something that really should kind of be dealt with by them at some point, one would think.
Yeah, and to your point, Maddie's saying it certainly feels like at the start, a lot of games, the other team has watched all the tape and they know exactly what we're going to be doing and just kind of stifles us. And, Cinnamon Toast Crunch adding to that, now I know how Ted Lasso felt. That is
Yes,
one of the difficulties of coaching, that's for sure.
definitely, definitely.
And now I do want to hop up a little bit more in chat here, and Striatic, of course, Striatic said, let's talk about McDavid and Draisaitl. They don't get enough press. But you know what? I kind of want to do that a little bit. Not just to praise them, of course, but I'm going to tie it in with something that Dave is asking too. What line was your favorite in this game, and what player stood out to you? And I'll start with my answer because I've had a second to think about it. But I liked the Bjorkstrand Wright Tolvanen line because I think were probably the Kraken's best forward line in terms of, the chances they were able to create in this one. And I think they kind of went back to the role of feasting on the lower competition a little bit too.
Yeah.
Because in this one thing I noticed is you had the Beniers line out, I think largely against the Draisaitl line. And I thought they did a pretty good job countering that line. Maybe given their level of competition, it was the most impressive. And then you had the Stevenson line up against the McDavid line, and they just kind of got caved in this one. Even though, McDavid didn't have a point in this one, felt like he really could have. There were a lot of plenty of opportunities, right? So I don't know. What do you think about kind of which lines did well, which lines didn't, and especially the task of stopping McDavid and Draisaitl?
Right. I will say this: the Draisaitl line for Edmonton looked a lot more cohesive. Like they look like they are guys that have chemistry and that they're able to go out there and really make plays. The McDavid line, it looked like McDavid kind of dragging guys with him, right? Like there was a lot of moments where you're just in awe watching McDavid do the stuff that he does, the speed he does, and the tight windows that he does it. And you then look and you're like, okay, he just made like 2 sick plays to keep possession as 2 different Kraken came at him. And what does he have to work with? And it's just 2 guys that are just, completely covered standing their net front. Like, you know what I mean? So like there's an element of, you were able to keep McDavid off the board, but honestly, I think Edmonton played a role in that just because it did not seem like he was getting the help that he probably realistically deserved out there. So I will say that on the McDavid front. As for the lines for the Kraken, I mean, look, just keep giving me this Schwartz, Matty Beniers, Capo Caco line as long as it's going and playing the way that it's playing, because they are just your best line right now. They are just playing like a top line in this league. They're able to generate chances. They're constantly in the offensive zone. They're able to look dangerous consistently, including at the beginning of the game. right? We talked about the team really kind of seemed to start slow. They just kind of got blown away by the Oilers early on. That was the one line that really it felt like was fighting back in any sort of kind of serious capacity. So I still really like that line. I think it's the kind of model of hockey that the Kraken need to start playing with all up and down the lineup to have success. So I still really like that one. I'm with you. The Shane Wright line was good again tonight. The Stevenson line is still the Stevenson line. We talked about it. Doesn't really seem to matter what wingers are there. That line's just going to kind of perform at a certain level, and you just kind of have to live with it. Yeah, and the fourth line I felt like again did his job. They were a good energy line. Brandon Tanev was able to get the puck up the ice and in deep against the Oilers during the first period, provide a little bit of a respite when they needed it. Ty Cartier always has his consistent motor, but they don't necessarily look dangerous from a scoring perspective these last couple games.
Yeah, and I thought they had a rough start, especially Ben Myers, kind of just
Ben
getting
Myers
thrown
had
in
a
the
rough
lineup,
one, yeah.
right? He had a rough start, but I thought he rebounded well enough and was good by the end of the game. So I'll agree with you there on the fourth line. And then Stratic saying you need to plug the Armchair GM stream to discuss trade stuff, and I do see lots of the trade stuff, going on in the chat that's happened. All this, the time for it, I will dig deep into it on the Armchair GM stream, which will happen later this month. I promise we will have a Patreon schedule out for you very, very soon. That's one of the things Dylan and I are going to discuss and settle on. Not too many options for the live commentary game this month too. So we will make a decision real quick, and we'll let everyone know very soon when that's going to be. But yes, for the Patreon, for the patrons, there will be the Armchair GM stream where I will go into all of the potential trade discussions, chatter, everything we want to look at. It's going to be an interesting one this month as we kind of look to maybe make a little bit more of a shakeup and see what that might look like.
Yeah. No, I'm excited for this month. Super excited for the prospect chat once I'll be able to dive into that.
World Juniors reaction.
With the World Juniors reactions and kind of going over all the Kraken prospects that were able to play there. And, Chalet, his road ended today. Zeb Forshaw, road ended today in this one, but still phenomenal tournaments from a lot of the top Kraken prospects. I cannot wait to talk about that.
Yeah, and Julius Miettinen getting to play for the Gold coming up too, so that'll be cool to watch him. And then Cinnamon Toast Crunch asking, how long does the trade deadline last for? So the NHL trade deadline this year, it's March 7th, 2025. So that's when the trade deadline is. And so that is kind of the last day that you can make trades and still have players be eligible for the playoffs. So it is essentially the trade deadline, really the last day these big deals happen in the NHL. So that'll be coming up in March.
Yeah. And yes, Byron corrected me. They are both still playing tomorrow, right? Sweden and Czechia are going to be playing for bronze, but the path and road that they wanted to have ended today.
Right. Bronze is still, it's still
bronze is something. And look, I like this whole, Final Four being consistent from last year and no Canada in there and lots of representation from the two.
That's nice.
The two Scandinavian teams, Team USA, and all the work that they've put into building their program and having the success there. And then also Czechia and all the work that they've put into their program and kind of, going through this. And everybody expected them to kind of fall off at this tournament as a large part of their last couple World Junior teams. That core group kind of graduated. Chalet, taking over as team captain. It's kind of like the baby of that previous group. They had a lot of younger players this year, but still able to make the Final Four, go compete for a bronze. It's a huge win for what Czechia hockey has been working towards for a long time now, and it's just fantastic to see that from them, that they're able to kind of keep this consistency even past that previous group of players.
Right, and that's what Koshan KG is saying. Bronze for the Czechs is honestly a big dub for them, considering how good the top four nations are consistently. Absolutely. And it's nice to see that, too, that there will be a team like, look, if the Czechs win bronze, I think they're going to be happy. The players are going to celebrate that. They're going to see that as a real accomplishment. It is. Whereas it feels like if Canada, whenever they win bronze, right, it's a massive disappointment. Nobody's happy with it, right? It is nice to see, the winner of that game still be happy with it.
Right. And it's a great learning opportunity for, like I said, a younger Czech team. They're going to be in a medal game this year, and then a large portion of them are going to be able to come back next year.
Right. And I think the more that these countries can develop their hockey programs, right, and get people excited about it, right, I think success leads to success for these countries. Look, Canada's always going to have a robust hockey system and all of that stuff, right? They're going to be around forever. The US is always going to have that. But seeing these other countries be able to have that success and hopefully kind of develop really good players, right, and grow the game there, that helps all of us, right? That's just going to be
Yeah.
good for all of us who get to watch the product and these players coming up and playing pro hockey as well. So that's just a win for all of us, really.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, Saarinen is just going to hold the door for the team on the bench during the gold medal game. Yeah, it's a job, you know.
It's I mean, it's just the way it goes, right? Especially in tournaments for goaltenders. You got to ride the hot hand if you're the coach, and sometimes it's just not your guy.
Yeah, no, that's how, especially with goaltending, that's how it
Yeah.
works. So as we kind of hit the 56-minute mark here, we'll kind of do a last call in chat, I think, and see if there's anything else that people want to talk about before we close out this post game live. Dylan, I do want to ask you about the lights turning off early on in this one, because we did mention that a little bit early on. But like, what was your reaction to it? Because I think we had to, I think the Oilers scored shortly afterward. We had to get back to our job. But I didn't really get the chance to ask you what your thoughts on that were. Like, what was going through your mind when that was happening?
Oh no, not
did
again.
the players get asked about that?
No, the players did not get
coach?
asked about that. Nobody asked about that. But it was very much one of those, oh no, here we go again kind of moments and situations. And so I think that was, it was interesting. I guess I'm happy I got to see one of the infamous Climate Pledge Arena lights go out moments. But it was just it was interesting. Thankfully they came back on really quick, because I was just like, oh no, like I'm tired, man. I've had a long week, and I was just like, I don't want this to be like an hour delay and then all sorts of stuff happens. Like I was just kind of worried from that front.
Right. And I just do, all right, well, there's an omen. Let's see, is this good or bad? I'm guessing bad. And yeah, turns out light issues at Climate Pledge Arena are a bad omen.
Yeah.
Jessica asked, my phone was out of battery, so I couldn't check in on the Discord or post game until now. Any insights as to why we started the first so flat-footed? Is there illness in the locker room? And I talked about it a little bit at the start of post game, and I was kind of just grasping, searching for answers. I didn't have a whole lot as to why. You have any theories?
No, I mean, look, I don't think we can keep using the illness thing, right? I think that's kind of gone
We've got to be
away.
past that.
I think we're past that. I think it's just, look, this is a group that has struggled with this for seasons now. Like, this is not a new development with this group. This is a thing that they have dealt with on more than one occasion. I think it's just they got to find a way to be able to start games consistently, and that is something that only they are going to be able to do for themselves. And again, it's not a good answer. It's not entirely an answer even. I'm in essence taking your question and passing the buck, but that ultimately that is what it is just, this is a group that has proven that they cannot do it consistently. They have to find a way to do it consistently.
Exactly. And so I think we'll close out the post game with this one from Cinnamon Toast Crunch, who did join us around the middle of post game too. And, as a newer fan joining us from the UK, which is great to see. But thanks for a wonderful stream and welcoming me into the Kraken fandom. It's 6:42 a.m. here, so I better get some shut eye. Thank you for that chat. And yeah, you probably should get a little bit of sleep. I always really admire the dedication of the fans across the pond who stay up till all ungodly hours to watch Kraken hockey, especially on the West Coast too. That takes a little bit of extra dedication as well. So glad to have you joining us here, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Welcome to the Kraken fan, and welcome to the ECH community. You're going to love it here, and hopefully there'll be some better results in the future as the Kraken get right back at it in a couple days against the New Jersey Devils. Looking forward to that one. I want to give one more thank you to Queen Anne Beer Hall. Make sure to get that chopped cheese. Make sure to get a double on that. Yep, so that is some good advice there. And we will see you all after the New Jersey game.